All right, anatomy students, this is going to be your first video lesson in the muscular system. First, we need to learn about muscle tissue before we start to learn the names and location of all the muscles in the body. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, everybody, we're going to start our unit on muscle tissue. Before we get involved in learning the names of muscles and where they are, the first thing we have to do is discuss the physiology of muscles and how they work. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. The characteristics of muscle tissue. There are four very important characteristics. I call them the 3 E's and a C. So as the notes say, like nervous tissue, muscles are excitable. That's your first E, meaning that they have the ability to respond to electrical stimuli. Unlike nerves, however, muscles are also, they have the physical characteristics of contractibility, which means they are able to get shorter, which is their job. When they're told to go to work, they get shorter. All muscles will shorten or contract. They have the ability to extend, or they have extensibility. You can stretch a muscle. And then they also have the elastic property. And we've discussed this before in the integumentary system when we talked about elastin in your skin. The ability to stretch is not elastic. That is extensibility. Elasticity is the ability to return to resting length. So everyone knows, again, to use this same rubber band example, you can stretch a rubber band. That is extensibility. When you let go of the rubber band, it bounces back to its original resting length. That is elasticity, being able to come back. So when you stretch a muscle and that you extend, or you practice extensibility, and then when you relax and rest that muscle, it will come back to its normal resting length. That is elasticity. Muscles make up a large percent of your body. Depending on the individual, it's going to be anywhere from 40 to 50% of your body's weight is all going to come down to muscle. Their main function is motion. They move our body. Again, they pull on the skeleton. The skeleton provides leverage for the muscles to work against, but the muscles are what moves the body. They also stabilize your body in position and help maintain posture. And one of the other things that muscles will do is they will generate heat, as we see on this slide. They will store substances within the body using sphincters. So when you hear the word sphincter, typically everybody always thinks of the one, at the very end of your digestive tract. But there are multiple sphincters in your body. Your stomach actually has 2 to keep food in your stomach until it's ready to either A, be moved on to the intestines, or B, to prevent it from working its way up your esophagus. So it's just not the one sphincter that everybody giggles about. They will also move substances through your body. Typically, this is done in a muscle contraction called peristalsis. When you swallow food, there's a wave of muscle contraction that pushes the food down your esophagus, follows it all the way down into your stomach, and that is called peristalsis. This is why you can eat or drink while hanging upside down, and this is also how astronauts in weightlessness are able to eat, because they don't need gravity for food to fall into your stomach. It's actually pushed into your stomach. And as we have just discussed, muscles also generate heat. They burn calories, and that puts off, you lose energy into the environment as heat. Then that warms your body. If you've ever exercised, you know that you generate heat by moving your muscles. There are three types of muscle tissue found in the body: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle, also known as visceral. We're going to focus almost all of our time on skeletal muscle in this unit. But because we're talking about muscle tissue, these other two bear mention. So this chart shows us a little bit about each one. We've seen this before in the tissues unit. Your skeletal muscle provides movement, heat, and posture. It is striated, multinucleated, and the fibers are highly organized and run parallel with each other. And skeletal is the only voluntary muscle. It is under your conscious control. You decide when they go to work. Cardiac muscle is in the heart. It pumps blood continuously. It works from before you are born until the day you die. It is also striated, but only has one nucleus per cell. It is also involuntary, means it's not under your conscious control. Thankfully, you don't have to consciously keep reminding your heart to do its job. That's all part of the autonomic nervous system. And then visceral or smooth muscle, we find them in hollow organs. So in your GI tract, the uterus, and in your eye, not around your eye, but in your eye, that help changing the size of your pupil, for example. And we also find these in blood vessels, helping move blood through your cardiovascular system. They will function by peristalsis. They help maintain blood pressure, change your pupil size, as I just said, and they will also cause your hairs to stand up. So we go back to the integumentary system, and if we remember, hopefully we all remember those tiny little muscle that will cause your hair to stand on end or give you goosebumps, and that little muscle attached to the hair follicle is called the erector pili, and it is a smooth muscle, not skeletal, and definitely not under your control. Smooth muscle gets its name because it has no striations and there is only one central nucleus per cell. And again, it is involuntary. So if we look at drawings of this, should also bring back memories from the tissues unit. Skeletal muscle there at the top left has the striations and the multiple nuclei. Cardiac muscle also has striations, but as you can see, only has the one nuclei. And hopefully we all remember the intercalated discs there that help cardiac muscle stand out. And then smooth muscle, as you can see, no striations, so no lines running across the smooth muscle. It's very smooth, and that's how it got its name. Skeletal muscle fibers are very long cells next to neurons, which are also very long cells. Some neurons can be over a meter long. The skeletal muscle cells are going to run the full length of the skeletal muscle. So think about your biceps brachii. That's your muscle in your upper arm that bends your elbow. A biceps brachii muscle will run from your shoulder to your elbow. One cell will run that full length. The longest muscle in your body is called the sartorius, and it is this guy right here. It runs from the front part of your iliac crest diagonally all the way across your thigh and attaches down here on the medial surface of your knee. It's about 30 centimeters long, and every skeletal muscle cell found in that muscle is going to be 30 centimeters long. That's a long, long cell. Now, there will be thousands and thousands of them running that full length, but they do run the full length of the muscle. So let's talk about how these muscles are organized. They have layers known as the epimysium, the paramysium, and the endomysium are all continuous within the connective tissue that form tendons and ligaments. They attach skeletal muscle to the bone and muscle fascia or covering that connects muscle and other muscles to form groups of muscles. So it's kind of hard to explain, but those layers, the epimysium, the paramysium, and the endomysium, that's connective tissue, and they're going to run from, say, take again, for example, the biceps brachii. That connective tissue is going to run from the origin up here on the head of the humerus all the way down through the muscle cell down into where it attaches at the elbow on the radius and the ulna. That connective tissue is continuous. It goes from one end to the other, and it will contain, imagine, being inside a sleeping bag. The muscle fibers will be surrounded and embedded within all of that connective tissue. And that's what holds the whole thing together. So when those muscle cells get shorter, they're pulling on connective tissue that they're wrapped in, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain. Hopefully the next few slides will help with that. All right, so here's a muscle cell that's been cut so that we can see, a muscle that has been cut so that we can see inside. So the epimysium is on that. Remember, epi means upon. That's the layer on the outside. You can see it here. Right there, it's been cut and pulled away. It will surround all of this part of the muscle. The perimysium is going to be around this part, that group of muscle cells there. And then the endomysium is going to be here surrounding all of those individual muscle fibers or muscle cells that are embedded in this. So see, this is blown up is this, that is that, and this is this part right there, if that makes sense. All right. And so it just keeps, the muscle is made up of muscle, groups of muscle fibers, and muscle fibers are all packed together, making the whole muscle itself. So here we are looking at a group of muscle cells. All of these this is one muscle cell right here. So here's a nucleus. Here's another nucleus. Again, skeletal muscle is multinucleated. Here you can see right here and right here and right there, the little orangish yellow structures. Those are organelles called the mitochondria, or as we all know, the powerhouse of the cell. And naturally, we all remember from biology class that it is called the powerhouse of the cell because it is where your cells will generate ATP through the process of cellular respiration, in which glucose is converted into, in the presence of oxygen, is converted into ATP with carbon dioxide and water as a byproduct. Again, I know it's a review because we all definitely remember that from biology class. And muscles use a lot of energy, so it would make sense that they have a lot of mitochondria there, able to make ATP for them. But you can see the perimysium surrounds this group of muscle fibers, and then the endomysium is going to surround the individual muscle fiber there. Okay? And then a muscle fiber or muscle cell is going to have lots of myofibrils inside of it, making up the whole muscle fiber. All right, so here's another section of the muscle that has been cut so that we can see the fibers inside. Remember, the endomysium is going to be around each and every one of the muscle cells. The perimysium way out here on the outside, it's going to be there. There are a couple other things that are listed in there. The blood capillaries, the neurons, the nucleus of the cell is given in here. This shows the striations, which are the alternating thin and thick filaments in each of the muscle fibers, the myofibrils, and so on and so on. And then we even get down to the actual filaments that are in there right there. And we'll talk about the filaments here shortly. So again, I can't say this enough. There's a lot going on. So the tendon is actually all of the layers of epimysium and paramycium, and the endomycium that surrounds all of this. All of that runs the full length of the muscle. So it's going to go all the way through the muscle. And it will, all of the connective tissue making those three layers will all come together and form the tendon. And again, the muscle cells themselves will be wrapped up and embedded within all of that connective tissue. I hope that makes sense. Organization of muscle tissue, the groups of muscles, the epimysium continues become thicker, forming a fascia which covers many muscles. So you can have groups of muscles that are covered in this fascia. Take, for example, here we have the quadriceps, aka your quads, as they're called in your legs, and the anterior part of your thigh. And the four muscles that will make up your quads are your rectus femoris, your vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and vastus intermedius. And they're right here, rectus femoris, vastus intermedius, medialis, and lateralis right there. And they will all be surrounded in a fascia that holds the whole muscle group together. Many large muscles are grouped in case both with superficial and deep fascia. Superficial, of course, would be on the surface. Deep would be down on the inside. And for those of you who have ever wondered what a real cadaver looks like, this is a picture of a real human cadaver. And so you can see this lighter color area here. That's a fascia that is over top, a superficial fascia that is over top of the abdominal muscles. And last slide for us for this video lesson, you can see again the layering and the wrapping of the muscles. The veins and arteries and nerves are going to be found embedded within the fascia, and the muscles will be all around them. So this is probably a section of the leg. That actually says it right there, of the thigh. So here's the femur, and you have your hamstrings and quadriceps. Hamstrings are back here, quads are up here. Even though there's only three, it just happens to be that section. So we're probably missing the very top of the medialis. Vastus medialis probably doesn't run up where this section has been made. But these are the muscles individually here. You can see the fibers will be running at us, and you can see the fascia in between that surrounds and protects all of those muscles. And then you have all the blood vessels, and the nerves are always embedded within that fascia. All right, that's going to be our last slide. All right, that should get us, hopefully, it wasn't too confusing talking about the different layers and the arrangement of the muscle cells and the connective tissue within the muscle. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. But that's all we have for video lesson 1. So log on out of here and head on to Schoology and go take your exit slip. Talk to you later.